So we covered the Beto O'Rourke town hall here, and the reason I wanted to cover it is because I kind of wanted to see what Beto's got, and it turns out on a couple of the answers, pretty good. I thought his answer on legalizing drugs was expansive, actually really detailed, and I love the details. But on most of the answers, unfortunately, fairly empty platitudes. And he came across to me as a glorified Martin O'Malley. So he speaks like a politician, and it's really annoying. So I could see him rehearsing the answers either in front of a mirror or with a consultant or both. So whenever he got like, okay, this is about fill in the blank, drug issues in America, criminal justice reform, he has his answer rehearsed and ready to go, and starts always with the inauthentic, thank you for that question. And he does it every time. And if
they all do it.
I know, but
you have to do it.
But wait, are you telling me that Bernie Sanders comes across as inauthentic?
No. Yes, you wrote it differently.
We analyzed his town hall, and I think what I noticed is that him not thanking the questioner was a little weird. You should thank people for their questions.
And I disagree with that. It depends. Like if it's like an interesting question, like thanks, that's like fascinating. When the person asked him a really tough question about how oil executives give him money, when he's like, thank you for that question. I'm like, no, you don't thank him for that question. You hated that question. It's okay to be human and say like, well, that's a tough question. I appreciate it because I'll tell you why. I wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, definitely not
that's
human.
What how a human talks.
I think I know where you're coming from because while we were watching in Studio B and watching in real time, it's a complete package issue, right? So it's not just that he thanks them and he uses the same exact way of thanking them each time. It's just like the anecdotes for me. Like anecdotes for me represent the I work with political consultants red flag, right? Because I don't care about the anecdotes. Now, if you want to contextualize your answer, I think that makes sense, right? So if you're about to say that you're in favor of jailing pharmaceutical CEOs, you want to contextualize that because if you don't, then your answer, if it's yes, it seems a little jarring, and some people might be like, "What the hell? What's up with this guy?"
He did a good job doing that.
Yeah, but look, so here's a human way of doing that, and a political way of doing that. Human way is like, man, I ran into this kid the other day, and he's got cancer, and his family doesn't have insurance. I don't know what they're gonna do. Are we gonna let him die? I think that's crazy. We can't let him die. Now, here's the political version. Okay, it reminds me of the other day when I ran into this little boy Drake, and he told me. I'm like, just talk human. So look, I could be wrong, and people, wild applause always, like, oh, empty platitude, yeah, climate change, I don't know that we're gonna do anything, but yeah, right? And so I want them to see through it. I think the best example of that was this juxtaposition of Medicare for all and Medicare for America. and I just wish that there was someone there who could say that isn't true. And or not that it isn't true, but clarify what the actual difference is. And so I never felt like they got a chance to do that. And then he does the things like, it's obvious pandering because he's at Drake University. That's why I accidentally used the word Drake a second ago for the boy in his story. And he says like, oh, my son is in the relays and I hope he makes it to the Drake relays. Like, yeah. And I was talking to a farmer that has the soybeans up against the Missouri.
This is politics. This is what you have to do. I mean,
no, you don't. No, you don't. You can be human.
Listen, he didn't jump on any countertops, and I think we all should be thankful for that.
He kept looking around.
He was really eyeing. He like wanted to jump right on top of Dana Bash because he's small. I don't know if we're all giving our takeaways. I think that he was a lot more I got more sincerity than I think you got, Cenk, but definitely rehearsed. But I felt like there was specificity. I think he understands the problem. He maybe spoke a little bit too much about the problems. To me, the biggest thing that stood out was that he had a terrible answer on climate change. And in 2020, you're unelectable. I don't care, you're a Democrat and you don't have a bold plan on climate change, unelectable.
Agreed.
Renewable energies in 2020, what are we, this is 94 and we're like trying to like save water? No.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think that he did want to show that he has an understanding of these issues and a deep understanding at that, but he needs to be a lot less verbose and just kind of get to the point a little sooner so we understand what his possible solutions or proposals are gonna be. Yeah. What stood out to me, and it happened at least twice during this town hall, was the call for unity and bipartisanship. And maybe I'm a bad guy, maybe I don't really agree with most Americans. I have no interest in unity right now. Right now is not the time for unity. And what I mean by that is I have no interest in any candidate who thinks that he's gonna be able to reach across the aisle and work with these Republicans. It is not the 1990s, it's not the 1980s. It's a completely different ball game. We're dealing with people who are, and I mean this, deplorable. People who support Trump taking children away from their parents at the border and putting them in cages. I don't want bipartisanship with them.
Yeah, so I gotta, look, Anna, you're 100% right. We should scream that from the rooftops. I'm not gonna apologize for that. And so, and the reason is, it's twofold. One is, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of politics in America. If you think that you can convince the Republicans to do the right thing, then you're gonna waste your 4 years. Yes. Absolutely trash them, throw them in the garbage, because you're not going to convince them of anything. Yeah. They take money and they do as their donors tell them. If you don't understand that, get out of the race, get out, because you're gonna approach them in the wrong way. The correct way to actually get things passed is to pressure, intimidate, and defeat your opponents. And so that's real politics. And and the second part of it is, what you're really saying is, I'm gonna work with them to help our corporate donors, because that's the only thing they'll agree to, and that's the only thing I'll agree to. Now, to be fair to him, he doesn't take corporate PAC money, but as he answered in his oil executive answer, he says he's proud to still take money from executives from fossil fuel industry, and all of them maxed out. And he's like, they're real people. Maybe some of them are, but most of them are executives and they know exactly what they're doing.
So he was one of the top recipients of the fossil fuel industry. Maybe they're not the companies, but individuals from these industries.
When the top executives bundle their money together and they all max out, not only do they know what they're doing, Beto knows what they're doing, and he took the money anyway. And he pledged not to, and he took it anyway.
Yeah, so he received over $500,000 in 2018 alone. That's according to OpenSecrets.org.
Yeah, if you got some middle-level managers at Google who are all rich anyway, and they're giving you money, and it's not coordinated, no big deal, right? They are in it. They don't have to be poor to be real people, right? But when all the executives are bundling it, you know why they're doing that.
Yeah, I think we need to be able to differentiate between the three levels: the corporation itself, the CEOs, and the workers. Obviously, you don't take it from the corporations. It's easy to identify the CEOs and the people who are basically CEOs and those levels of positions of power, not take it from them. When it gets down to regular people that are working for an oil company in Texas, well, there's Democrats in Texas. There's a big oil industry. Some of them are gonna support the Democrat. And by the way, so if that sounds like, oh, why are you being so like forgiving to Beto? Understand that his climate change answer during this debate is a complete deal breaker for me. So I have no interest in Beto anymore after hearing his explanation. But we have to be reasonable. You're not gonna go through and start identifying, some dude who happens to work for some industry and then weed that out. I don't want people looking that far into who is making a $27 donation.
By the way, there's a reason why there was not some other industry pledge. There's a specific fossil fuel pledge, because this is a thing that the fossil fuel companies do. Their executives get together, bundle the money, and give it to people in case they're not taking corporate PAC money. So there's a very specific reason for that pledge, and he took the pledge and then violated it.
Yeah, and I think there's
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think the pledge is also incredibly important for this specific issue too. And perhaps if he had taken that pledge and stuck to that pledge, a decade or more ago, then he wouldn't be in the position where we legitimately can't trust him on this issue, regardless of what he says and how he speaks sort of vaguely positively about the Green New Deal, but won't actually commit to it, thinks he has a better plan that doesn't go anywhere near as far. If he had never been taking that money, he would have avoided some tough questions at the town hall tonight, and he would have gained a lot of trust on our part today.
So we're gonna get into the specific answers he gave in just a minute, but before we do that, do you want to give your thoughts
just a little
overall?
bit. Yeah, some of the stuff of him just being a politician doesn't bother me quite as much. I try to watch this with one eye and one ear for what I want, and one eye and one ear for what I at least think other sorts of people want. And I interact with a lot of people that view the same political events every day very differently than me, and I try to understand where they're coming from. I think there are people who want a version of that. I don't know that he's selling it, but he sells it a lot better than like Ted Cruz, when Ted Cruz tries to do the politician-y thing and just comes across as super slimy.
It's a low bar, dude.
It's a super low bar. And look, Obama did it much better, I think. And people like that about Obama. I think he's consciously doing a cover act for Obama a lot of the time. I don't know that it's actually gonna convince people, but I think what he's trying to do is he's not trying right now to take out Bernie, he's trying to take out Biden. He's trying to show himself to be an alternative for that lane. And that lane likes politicians that put their thumb out and talk about Joey in Tampa or whatever. It's usually not Tampa, but you get what I'm saying. So that didn't do anything for me, and like I said, there was a deal breaker, which we'll get to when we go into the details. But I think that if what he was trying to do is get some of the press back from Buttigieg, I think that that's a better performance than Buttigieg.
Politically, I mean, in terms of where I think the Democratic Party is going, I think that O'Rourke had much more progressive answers than Buttigieg. And I mean, I trust him more, I guess. I don't know. I think in terms of the Biden, I think you're right. He's gonna take voters away from Biden. But those voters just want a winning horse. I mean, people.
No, that's the lane I think he's trying to compete in. Not gonna shake things up too much. I speak with what seems like passion.
I'm sorry, but Beto O'Rourke is not like, he's not gonna win. I really don't think he's in the winning lane. People want Biden because they're like, well, let's go back to what can win and what we knew. And I don't think that's Beto.
So last thing on this is that, look, I can get past his political speak. That's why I said his answer on drugs was fantastic. When he talked about, hey, real responsibility for the drug makers, ending for-profit prisons, etc. So we hear the actual substance of the answers, and if it's good, we'll tell you, and if it's bad, like our Green New Deal or Medicare for All, we'll also tell you that. But when somebody says we've got to take off when on his answer on guns, the weapons of war designed for the battlefield, that is a phrase that I know for a fact is focus grouped and consultant derived.